So we are now being recorded, just as a heads up to all of you. So what you say now is immortalized. And here comes the screen share. And everyone should be able to see that wonderful image of the facade of First Lutheran. That working? Everyone see that image all right? Give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen share. Okay, great. All right, wonderful. Make adjustments as needed for you. I'm doing some. Yep, I'm jumping around. That while I'm monkeying with my image here, that image was taken last night from one of our members' apartments downtown, and so it was a nice. I put the spotlights up that we used for Blink last fall, and we have 3 sides lit up. The south side is the darker side, there isn't as lit, but the north and the west side are lit with the colored lights, and that music hall backdrop really frames it nicely. I think it's just a nice image. Chris Heckman and a few others have already talked about. We need to find a drone and get some quality images of that to preserve that, and maybe make a collection of nice images of the tower before it comes down. So with that, thanks for coming out today. This morning, as we have shared the news in the most public way, we've shared it kind of quietly, publicly, through friends and connections that we needed to at first, but we wanted to wait until we had the fullness of information, which came in the form of the City of Cincinnati emergency abatement order that we received on November 10th. That was not a surprise to us. You'll get into that in a bit, but but we thought now that we had the full information and accurate information, we know the direction this is going, it was certainly time to share the news. So here is the update. If this is from that emergency abatement document that we received on November 10th, the bell tower of the church has suffered serious deterioration, is in danger of collapse, and presents an immediate threat and hazard to the public safety. So some pretty clear words there in that one-page letter from the city. Art Dahlberg, the head city inspector engineer, provided that document. Now, he conducted the inspection himself on site and was able to look over. Some more on where that and how that was initiated and came about in a bit. This picture here is this picture's an old picture, but it's got the blue line on there. So if you can see the blue line on the bell tower, that is what right now is where the bell tower would be cut down. We discovered just recently that some of the conical roof rafters go in, tie into the bell tower above the main box beam, which means we can't tear down that wall above the box beam because the conical roof structure would then come tumbling down as well. So there's a little bit of curve in there that needs to be. Let me know. My internet connection unstable message just came up. Let me know if I cut out, or to send me a text if you got my number, phone call me, so I'm not talking to a dead screen. But so that blue line shows what that could look like. So Alan Elgersma, First Lutheran member, who's an architect with Champlin, is they're continue to donate their services on our projects, is working with our engineers, THP engineering firm. And they're looking at that roof solution there. And then get some more notes to come on that. But that gives you an idea just from the get-go where that'll be capped off. So what's going to be removed and what's going to be left. To give you, also, if you are looking at it to the left, the salmon-colored building, the one-story salmon-colored building will be demolished as well. The facade will be preserved. So the facade will still be there, but behind that will be a empty, vacant lot. And some notes on why that is when we come along in a second. Well, I guess now is a good time with that. You can see the streetcar platform right there in front of the church, the top of it to the left of the tree. So the streetcar platform there, the streetcar lines make an approach to the demolition effort from the west impractical, unless we were to shut down Ray Street and put a giant crane in Ray Street and go over the streetcar lines and then demolish it by a guy in a bucket, piece by piece. That would be very timely and costly, and would be disruptive to traffic and whatnot. Cost prohibitive would be probably the biggest concern for us. And so that really the west side is not an option for the demolition. So the path to 2020, how do we get here? Just real quick, and I recommend and
September 24th on our YouTube channel is a recording. It's also on our Facebook page. You scroll back, it's posted there. Is a bell tower information presentation that was made 1 hour long, just like this. And that was what with the information we had at that time. Obviously, we have more information to share now, but that was a snapshot in time. So some of this information is just taken directly from that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I just want, if you want more of these details, that's where you go to find more of the specifics. So in 2014, when I arrived in August, we quickly did an assessment and determined that there was an estimate of $3.1 million needed for capital restoration in our 1895 historic building. And the decision was to remain here because the question at the time was, do we leave and go somewhere else, or are we going to stay on Washington Park? And overwhelmingly the response was, we want to stay here. We want to stay where we've been. And yes, we recognize the cost. It's going to be hard work, but we were up for the challenge, was the voice message I heard from the community. And that has not wavered. It's been consistent even up till now. People say, nope, we're staying, we're not leaving, we're not walking away from this. So 2014 to 20, we engaged consultants, several of them, probably 6 or 8 different consulting engagements, contracts, to pursue different funding, community, national, local grant opportunities, but also capital campaigns internally at First Lutheran. So capital fund sources were secured between 2015 through pledges that go through 2022. So we actually have secured funds that go through the next 2 years even, or a year and a half. So we have, I guess, two years. We are, from 2015 into the future, we've identified capital finance resources. And the 2020 February proposal we received from Ignite Philanthropy, Ignite Philanthropy, if you're not familiar, worked on the Blink program the first time around, and then also the Music Hall restoration. So they're a local Cincinnati philanthropic fundraising organization. And we had a $180,000 18-month contract in hand, ready to endorse and move forward with the idea that we would then secure in the 18-month period for $180,000, potentially secure $1.8 million, which would be the remaining restoration work for the church. And so I share this because that's what happened after February 2020 was, of course, COVID-19 came along and the economic recession. So we mutually agreed, everyone, that this was not the time to move forward with the community campaign. So we had to not only hit the pause button on that, we did at the time, but now with this bell tower reality, the money we were going to use to sign the contract with Ignite is now being put into this bell tower demolition project. So we will not be conducting a community campaign. The urgency of it doesn't allow us the time to delay that. So next, that's the message there, is that we had to eliminate that community campaign option, but it does speak to the spirit of our intent was to all along do a full restoration of the historic building. Demolishing the bell tower was not in our plan until we received the news, which you'll see here in a second, of the dire circumstance or situation that the bell tower condition is in. So July 2020, THP, we ordered a structural engineering report on the bell tower. They quickly initially identified some critical concerns and then did further investigation. And after about, we spent about $6,000 or $7,000 so far on the engineering studies and survey and report, conditions report. And the result came basically, this one line sums it up, received on September 16th, 2020. The bell tower structure and facade veneer are in poor condition, requiring immediate remediation to establish the stability of these building elements. Should the cost of remediation exceed viable resources, the bell tower should be raised to the level of the supporting girders. So that was the official. At end of July, we had a verbal message that might or looked like to be the case. In mid-September, we received this formal report, and which could not be ignored. So then we passed this along to the city for their review to see what their response might be. At the same time, during this report was going, we started the selection of contractors to get bids. Jumping back just to look at real quick the capital projects we've completed, what we've been doing while we've been raising funds and approaching different foundations and pursuing tax credits and community resources and grants. We also did our own work. And so we did interior improvement projects. There'll be pictures on the next slide. You'll be able to see these by volunteers. We had volunteers who put in a great deal amount of sweat equity with a little bit of financial, about $30,000 to fund the purchase of materials that the volunteers were able to use for the enhancements. We restored the facade, the stained glass windows in the facade gallery area are all restored now. The gallery itself, the altar wall, which would be the east wall in the main sanctuary. Some roof work was done. And then here's the pictures there. You can see the impact that we have done. With all told, invested in there is $1.3 million of invested resources into the building, completed by about 40 households at First Lutheran and some outside Lutheran partner congregations and members, but primarily by First Lutheran families who are passionate about the restoration of this space. And I'm mindful of this too, that work is done, and 90% of the usage of the building is for non-First Lutheran activity. So 20,000 people in 2019 came through our doors, and the 20,000 people that came through our doors were for about 50% of the people for health and human service activity like Narcotics Anonymous, food, clothing distributions, a group, and then the other 50% were for community events, arts. This is a community, just a wedding being hosted here, things like that. So the spaces, as you can see, significant improvement. So we have not been just waiting for someone from the outside to come in and assist us and do this. We have been proactively engaged in the restoration of this. Look like this clicked on something. I lost my. There we go. So there we've got. There we go. And we've got capital fund sources. Here's where we had 2015, we had the property projects appeal. We had which raised the $30,000. We had our first on track and resolute capital campaign and internal faith community campaign, and that secured the funds for the facade restoration primarily. The 2017 Mission Investment Fund, part of that was we secured a $620,000 mortgage, which we have about $581,000 remaining on that mortgage balance. And then we just finished up last fall, another 3-year capital campaign with commitments through 2022 for Faith Forward capital campaign. And that was to secure funds for ministry purposes, but also for ongoing restoration work in the church. And a large part was to fund that community campaign, that contract with Ignite Philanthropy for $180,000. And then again, this is that message about approximately 40 households that have been doing that. We have other partner churches, but a lot of people who are not familiar with how the ELCA Lutheran congregation system works is as soon as if we were to put other like Lutheran congregations, the sense would be, that's where the money's coming from. And so we have received gifts from other partner churches in the Cincinnati area, but 98% of the funds, that $1.3 million I talk about, come from people who have a direct connection with First Lutheran. And so I don't want to discount those partner gifts, but I don't want to minimize, I want to stress the significant contributions that this group of passionate households have made to the restoration efforts here, and as well as at the same time, the ministry efforts that we've been doing, making it available for the community to use. So there is, again, that's at $1.3 million. So now back on track with where we are now, August through September. We started the contractor bid procurement as Tech Services Group, demolition of the bell tower in the 1212 building, that Salmon building just to the north of us, which we own. It is vacant. Is $240,000 for work. Demolition of the bell tower in 1212 building is $320,000. And HEC SSRG, same companies there. Demolition of bell tower is $750,000. The 1212 building was not included in their quote, so that would be an additional expense. But their process involved doing the demolition. Well, they had 2 different quotes, but I think that one, the 750, would require the demolition of 1212 building. But it's possible to do the demolition of the tower without taking down 1212, but the cost goes up significantly and is cost prohibitive that way. HECSRG is the only one we received for a full restoration of the tower, and their estimate was $1.2 million would be the full restoration. A note on that restoration quote is, I think if I run through the materials, 100% of what you see if you're standing in Washington Park would be replaced with new items. So for example, the sandstone veneer, the wood louvers, the slate tiles on the roof, all of that would be have to be replaced. And so what would be remaining if you did that restoration would be the interior structural components, the 1895 era, and best thinking of the engineering day. And that was lifted up as a concern too. So we put $1.2 million into the restoration of the tower, and everything you see on the outside would be new. and the things on the old side would be 1895 and still questionable in its structural integrity. Some questions raised there. So beyond the funding obstacle, there's also concerns or questions about integrity and just good stewardship decision on this. And so the message came to be, to me at least in our community, was restoring the tower would be the best way, would actually be to document what's there, tear the bell tower down, and then rebuild it. You could do that identically. We don't have a cost on that, but that would be the best possible way. And so that's there. And now continuing on to contractor bid selection process. So what did that look like once we got the bids in? Then we went back and did some follow-up meetings to get some apples and apples comparisons. And we, HECSRG's expertise is in restoration. Their cost was higher than the other, but they were consistently identified by their peers as the only company capable of a restoration effort. When asking around wherever we turned, people said, nope, they're the ones. No one else really seemed interested in trying to pull off a restoration of the tower. Because the technical challenges involved with it and the skill sets needed. O'Rourke Demolition has an established reputation, and I knew O'Rourke because I see their cranes all around town, and so even prior to this, I'd heard of them, but they presented extremely well and during our meetings, and I would certainly have enjoyed working with them. Very confident that they would have been a fantastic partner in this project. Aztec Services Group, we discovered to be the lesser known entity, but after meeting with Tom and Al and using our many network connections, which First Lutheran has in our faith community, to check references, we feel confident that they are more than capable of completing this project. So we, looking at the cost, if you remember, it was a $320,000 and $240,000 difference. That's $80,000, and we are, there's a financial driver here, but we're very confident that Aztec Service Group will be the contractor of choice for this project, and that's who we will be recommending to our First Lutheran congregation on Thanksgiving Eve, November 25th at 6:30, prior to our worship service that night at 7. We'll recommend them for approval to sign that contract to begin demolition work sometime in December if all continues on track. Important details to know. Demolition staging and 1212 building demolition. I touched on that earlier, but I'll just go back on that. Is the western approach to the building is no longer an option because the streetcar platform and the wires that are there, there's no viable access point there without shutting down all of Ray Street for an extended period of time. So what that means is the Baldwin Alley, the 1212 building facade needs to stay there because in order to doing with the facade, since from the OTR Historic District, we need to present to the Cincinnati Urban Conservatory Board for review and approval, whatever might happen there. We have images. We have a 1942 Centennial Celebration booklet that has a picture of the facade 1942, and the facade is different. So that building is not, it's World War II, that was a different building. So I'm not sure when that actually was built, but we do have an image of it in 1942. So it's likely not in the period of historic significance, that World War II, post-World War II era. So in the future, we could alter it for our handicap accessibility entrance or whatever we want to do there, but that would still have to go through review. So we will leave that there, which actually is a help for us because if we were to take that facade down, while that 1212 lot is vacant, we can't leave it at a vacant open lot. We would have to have some type of facade or barrier there until we move to our next phase of restoration and construction. So the contractor is able to preserve that facade so that will remain unchanged. The demolition process will be then as they will come back in through the Baldwin Alley, which is on the east side of First Lutheran. The Baldwin Alley runs from between 12th and 13th Street. It's a 7-foot wide alley is all, so it's not very expansive, but so this will be a complicated tactical project, and I'm glad I'm not the one in charge of it. So they will then, that'll be their access point, and then the 1212 lot will be the staging area for the scaffolding and dumpsters, and the scaffolding will go up, and then item by item, they'll have chutes that'll go down to the 1212 lot into dumpsters where the debris will go down, and then they will haul it out as those dumpsters become full. So again, a very time-consuming, it's a technical project there. Salvage items in the bell tower in the 1212 building. The 2,000-pound Verdun bell, it's 1895, and we have trying to hang up my phone there. We have Hey, we're back. Can you hear me now? Everyone's there. All right. It wasn't you. I don't know. It was me. Mine just went dead. So apologies for that. I got to get back on my screen share and pick up where we left off. All right. Can you hear me now? We're good? Bruce, Mike, Dave, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Yes. Okay. Very good. And I got to go back. I'm sorry. I need to see. Do you have the record button? Is the record button on? Yes, we are. Okay, good. So back on screen share. So back on, so the salvage items, Verdant Bell, the Verdant Carillon that was donated back in 2012. A neat story about that, someone from the community anonymously donated an electronic Verdant Carillon. So the chimes that you hear on the hour were donated by a member of the community who said, we want to make sure that when the Washington Park is developed, the new restoration, that church bells can be heard. So someone anonymously donated about $12,000, I believe the cost for that. They paid for the installation, everything. We will then, I think there's a place we can put it in the front facade of the church. There's some louvered points right there at the very peak that would be easy to put it there. And then that way the sound of the carillon would continue to ring out towards Washington Park. It wouldn't be a surround sound like it is now, but at least it would be directly towards the park. Back on the Verdant Bell, it would be nice to be able to find a place, rather than just put it in a warehouse for 2 to 3 years. It would be nice to be able to find a public space where this 2,000-pound Verdant Bell could be put on display, if you will, that the public could have a chance to see it, walk by it, and just take a look at it. It's a nice connection. It's a historic piece with the Verdant Company and First Lutheran sharing an 1842 birth date here in Cincinnati. The 1212 furnace was put in 1 or 2 years ago with $5,000 that went out, and so that's a brand new furnace, and so we'll pull that out and figure out what to do with that. And then they're going to attempt to salvage the copper caps on the steeple at the very top. They're not sure how they're attached and if they'll be able to take them off without mangling them. And so until they get up there, they're not going to know what's going on with that. But we will try and preserve those features so that they'll be available for some future restoration effort. If not, they'll be simply recycled and for scrap. The timeline is 7 to 10 days after contract sign. And then it's a 60-day cost. It's a cost project for them. And so if COVID-19 or weather delayed the project, we asked about that. This is less than ideal time to start a project like this because weather could cause delays when you're 132 feet up in the air on scaffolding. It gets pretty cold up there on a windy day. So the worker safety is a factor. And then also we come in with COVID-19. Up until now, contractors have been considered essential workers. So they continue to work through all of this. COVID-19, though, if it gets worse, I could see maybe a mandatory shutdown of everything. That's not out of the realm of possibility, but we do have, after 60 days, we'll start to incur $210 a day for scaffolding rental expense. So the contractor said that they don't, if it shouldn't go that far. That's a stretch. They think 1 month is what they'll think it'll take to get up, and the scaffolding will come down as the tower comes down. So that scaffold cost rental will be diminished day by day as they take down each course of scaffolding down from their project. But those of that would be, so since it's a lump contract, lump sum, that means the price we agree to is the price we will pay. That means there's no guaranteed maximum price, which in that world means that if it came in at $10,000 below actual cost, then we'd share that savings with the contractor or split that. It's the fact is we'll pay it, whatever we see on the contract we sign, that's what we'll pay. Kind of like buying a car. You buy a car, you don't, you pay what you pay. That's the way to look at that. And then we have the exposure or the risk if it goes beyond 60 days. So if we wanted to delay and eliminate the COVID and weather risk, but we can't, we don't have the luxury of that right now. Important details can continue. A roof cap will need to be constructed on the remaining lower tower structure. On the opening slide I showed had that blue line that shows where if you take a chimney and you make it shorter, you're still going to have a roof on it. So we're removing the roof at the top of the steeple. So we need to create some low-cost roof structure that will be hopefully a 2, 3, 4 year roofing solution until we do something more permanent. Ideally, when we do a full elevator accessibility installation, we could also put a roof cap, longer, nicer piece on there then. Alan, as I mentioned, is working that with THP to design the roof cap, and that then will be submitted to the city for approval. Once the city has that for approval and approves the design and concept, then we've already identified 3 contractors that we can secure bids from to do that work. So the project will transition from Aztec, if we go with them, hire them, to another contractor. So they will then hand over the scaffolding rental, and they'll assume that risk and contract. And they will then, the next contractor will then finish the roof cap. We'll need a wall on the back side of 1212 lot along the Baldwin Alley. And then there's some other things that that might arise that we'll need done. But there's some surprises in this, but hopefully we're doing our best to anticipate any surprises so we aren't caught unawares in all this. So what's next? What's next is a congregational meeting for First Lutheran voting members. 84 voting members. We mailed out ballots for those voting members so they can fill them out and mail those back in. So on 6:30 on November 25th, we will have a congregational meeting, hopefully a short one, because everyone will understand what we're doing and what the motion is that we're seeking approval for, and that's to sign the contract and the expenses related to this project. We really don't have a choice about whether we do it or not, because the city emergency demolition abatement order says that we have 30 days to address this. If not, they will then begin the process of addressing it, and we will receive the bill for that. So we'd much rather manage the expenses in the project on our timeline with what we think is the right costs than have the city take over the church project. So with that, it needs to happen. It's more a matter of how much we control this process. Next would be contract is for $238,409 is approved. We can sign the contract on December 1st. That sounds like an election ballot kind of thing going on here at First Lutheran. Is we have Thanksgiving Eve, then we have 3 days, and our continuing resolution to allow members to mail their votes back in, either yes, no, or abstain. And once those are received, then we can it's clear majority that we have congregational vote support for this, signing the contract, then we can do that. I'm anticipating by December 1st, hopefully we'll have enough of those ballots back in to show that we have a majority of support for that. I'm not too concerned about that, especially when we talk about the finances. That's probably the biggest concern is how we're going to pay for it. And we'll get to that in a second. So demolition of the 1212 building could begin as early as December 10th. I just 5 minutes before I jump on here, the asbestos abatement environmental safe hazard company Pinnacle is coming out tomorrow morning 8:15. They will need a full day, maybe a day and a half, to do an inspection of the bell tower and the 1212 building to then verify that there aren't any hazardous materials in the building. If not, then this report can be submitted and the EPA will receive their report, and then we'll be good to go shortly after December 1st. If there is materials in there that need to be abated, then that will delay us possibly by 10 days to file another report, but also to get the asbestos and whatever materials are removed from the building in a safe manner. So again, some unknowns there. And also that's an additional cost. Any abatement expense would be in addition to, is not covered by the Aztec contract. So that's again an unknown factor there. With the 60-day window, then, if we can get December 1st, that means demolition could be completed December, January. So by February 1st, then that project would transition to another contractor for the roof construction and design there. And then what's next then would be for First Lutheran 2023 to 2025. So the fall of 2022, we have our next capital campaign, which secures our next capital funding resources, which would be directed towards an elevator and possible new tower concept. Financing the demolition of the tower, we have, just highlight this real quick, so $65,000 in our general fund reserve. These are to support our regular ministry operations. We can tap into that if there's an emergency, but during a time of economic uncertainty, it'd be nice to preserve that as best as possible. We also have $100,000 in our ministry staff fund. That is intended for the hire of a second pastor in 2020, and COVID-19 put a pause on that. We are still preserving those funds with the intent that we will hire that additional ministry staff person. So that's, again, that would be our second option, not even our second, probably our last option, I think, as a ministry. That would really discourage the people of First Lutheran if we had to use that to tear down a bell tower. Because ministry is our main mission focus, not historic preservation. Our third financial resource is our capital fund. We have cash on hand. We have outstanding pledges through 2022, and we have the recent generous gift of a friend of First for $120,000, which is to support our efforts to build an elevator. But the donor also realizes and appreciates that in order to get to the elevator, we have to address the bell tower situation. So those funds can be put towards this current project. These funds also have to support our $3,200 monthly mortgage payment, and we now have a balance of $581,000 on that. We have identified $280,000 that can be used on the tower demolition project. Once we pass this threshold, we will still need to consider sources outside the capital fund. If not a significant amount, we could use general fund reserve dollars. Another option would be borrowing funds from Mission Investment Fund, MIF, our mortgage lender. So again, that $280,000 is what we have available for capital restoration, capital projects. You saw the Aztec contract is just shy of $240,000. So simple math means that we have $40,000 available in capital resources that we can use towards that bell tower roof cap, the back alley wall, and architecture and engineer fees. So what I just listed there, that stuff adds up quick. It's not cheap. But at this time, we don't have any costs on those because we don't know what's going to be designed and accepted and approved by the city and what will ultimately be built. So we have an open question there, but we really, that's something we'll get. I think, unfortunately, that's going to come after we sign the Aztec contract, but Aztec contract is the lowest bid. And so we don't have, so far everything is going in our favor in financial world because it's allowing us to move forward with the demolition. And I'm confident that we'll be able to address that roof cap with the funds we have available. So that possible congregational meeting motion next Wednesday could read something like this. Our leadership team needs to fine tune this based on conversations, what we hear from people at First, but it could sound like this. First Lutheran's leadership is authorized to sign the Aztec Services Group contract in the amount of $238,490 for the purpose of demolishing the bell tower and the 1212 Ray Street building. First Lutheran's leadership is also authorized to incur expenses necessary to complete the demolition project, which includes items such as the installation of a roof cap on the remaining tower, construction of a barrier on the east side of the 1212 lot, and payment of engineering architectural fees. These expenses are not to exceed $80,000, of which $40,000 can be taken from the general fund reserve. So that language as a sample possible motion, what it provides for is it covers the Aztec contract. It also provides up to $80,000 where the First Lutheran leadership team would not have to come back to the congregation seeking approval. If the expenses after the demolition are done exceed $80,000, then it would be good order for the First Lutheran leadership team to come back and explain what's going on and why it's costing so much to put a temporary roof cap on a bell tower. But the $80,000 provides I'm hoping some cushion for that. I'm hoping it's not that much. And then where do those funds come? Because I said that once we pass the $280,000 threshold, so that would be $320,000 total, 240 plus 80, 320. That means $40,000 would have to come from some other source other than capital fund resources. Our general fund reserve is at $65,000 and is on a growth trend towards the end of the year because we're not incurring expenses because we're closed because of COVID and the bell tower. So we do have 65. If we took 40 out of there, we'd still have $25,000 in our reserve. So I guess in my mind, that would be a starting point because the other options are to pull it out of our staff ministry fund or to go borrow more money. Based on conversations I've had with people at First Lutheran, those two are not really, would not be supported readily. You can let me know in conversations afterwards here, but right now the general fund reserve seems to be the natural place to go to fund any funding needs that we need for the remainder of the project. So that's that, and then so that's it. So thanks for support of First Ministry to share the love of God. Again, that last thing there, our purpose statement is to share the love of God, and so we keep that in mind as we think about what we are doing here with this bell tower project and restoration efforts. All of that is part of our mission and ministry to share the love of God as a faith community to the members of our faith community, but also to the members of the Cincinnati, greater Cincinnati community through our arts and human service community events venue ministry that we make available to the community at little to no cost. So with that, I'm going to stop share now. And I'm going to open it up. You can unmute yourselves and you can ask me questions and make comments. And again, welcome all of you if you came in late. We're glad that you joined us, and we welcome your questions as well. Don't all talk at once.
Well, Brian, I'd like to, I guess, echo what you're saying about the condition, having gone and looked at it and taken pictures of it. And I guess for some of our outside listeners who have not been involved with this, they may not be as aware of the general deterioration after this 125 years or so. That the facade has deteriorated, it's delaminating and spalling off. Architectural features are almost difficult to tell what they are. I don't know whether they're birds or gargoyles that there were there on the corners. It's hard to say. The steel work in some places is badly corroded. And I think the whole construction is in a manner that we might not accept today with generally accepted engineering practices. So it's really a pity that it would be so difficult and expensive to restore this. But I think that it would be a very deep hole to start throwing money into. And I guess with, we don't have pictures here today to show that, but I think that that's a point that needs to be emphasized here for the greater community, that we've looked at it and it is just very problematic and a much deeper problem than just a visual inspection from the street would ever suggest.
Thanks, Dave. And I want to add some weight to Dave, or Mike, to Dave's commentary there. Dave is actually a structural engineer himself. Not an structural, but a metallurgical engineer. He's an expert in metal corrosion. So that's a significant problem with our main bell tower box beam structure. So Dave speaks from professional expertise and knowledge in this, as opposed to me. I've got a seminary degree. Other comments, thoughts?
Brian, this is Cameron Knight with the Inquirer. Can you just give me some sense of what you're hearing from your congregation? I mean, it sounds like they're supportive of this, but this has got to it's got to hurt to lose a big chunk of your building. So just trying to get some sense of how people feel about it. I mean, it's got to be a little sad.
Yeah. I saw Carolyn, who's up in, if you can see her or not, but she was shaking her head. And so Carolyn, if you want to jump in and respond to that question, rather than have the pastor interpret, I think you could provide a direct voice to that. So how would you answer that?
It's very sad to see something like the bell tower have to come down, because it is a noticeable part of the community. But on the other hand, it's a necessary project. It has to be done for safety reasons. And we might be the generation that takes the bell tower down, but hopefully we'll be the generation that also maybe builds the elevator and puts another bell tower up. We'll see. But I think the church supports us in what we're deciding to do. Just stay the course.
And thanks, Karen. And Cameron, I would add, in talking to one specific conversation I had, but I think it's been echoed in other conversations for sure, is because I think it's my responsibility to lift up the possibility and consideration, just as I did when I arrived in 2014. Is this good stewardship for a ministry? We identified, my first drive was actually a $4 million, and we got it down to $3.1 million needed. And I kind of thought long and hard before I took the call here. It's like, well, do I really want to be going to a place that needs $3 million of restoration work in a neighborhood that's still not even fully developed itself to support it? And so that was, but the message was stay. And then, so I raised it up again with this tower challenge, was maybe we throw in the towel and we sell. There's a good real estate market for this location where we are, and we could take those ministry funds and purchase a location somewhere else in Cincinnati. But the message was, no, the spirit of First Lutheran is in this building and location. The building's not the ministry, but there's a story here, a legacy, an identity. And so if First Lutheran were to sell and move, First Lutheran would no longer be First Lutheran. I think, does that make sense? That's a spirit I think I hear from a lot of people. So I have not encountered to be honest, I've never encountered a single person that said, Pastor Brian, we should leave this place. It's a waste of our time and money. Not once in 6 years. And so Carolyn no encapsulates that. Anyone else want to chime in on that? Joe or Cindy's on there, Jess?
I'll add a thought, Brian. One of the points that you made, I thought was a very strong one about, and it was with regard to the rationale for taking this tower down. It's that, we could potentially spend the money to restore the whole thing, but that tower does not provide a single bit of our ministry. It's beautiful, it's substantial, it's historical, but you can't hold an event in it. You can't service people. You can't do anything. And so it's not, spending an exorbitant amount of money to try to restore it now is not the best use of our funds. We're about the ministry, and the rest of the church supports that ministry, the rest of the structure.
And I would, just to clarify that, Joe, is not the best use of our funds, is we don't even have the funds to do that. It's not even an option for First Lutheran. But what it does do, it would be, if we did have those funds, it would really hinder our ability to make the building accessible and finish the interior restoration of the other spaces that would enhance our ministry you're talking about. It would delay that, I would think, by a decade. And it would also take a lot of ministry momentum, community momentum out of our people who, as I've tried to lift it up, have contributed so much already.
Those points are important. Thank you for adding those.
Yeah.
And can I get Dave and Carolyn, could you both give me your full names and spell it if you don't mind being quoted in the newspaper?
My name is Carolyn Kazich, Kazich.
And my
Carolyn
name
with a
is-
C.
Yeah, Carolyn, Carolyn.
I'm David Crow, and Crow is spelled Crowe.
Thank you for enduring my newspapery questions.
No problem.
Thank you.
Hey, we're in the business of telling a story here too, so we understand what it takes to tell a story. So thanks for your work. Any other thoughts, conversations?
Yeah, do you have keys to the 1212 building, Brian?
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah, we got keys at 12. Yeah, I had to get some. I actually had to get some more made because I thought, oh no, contractors are going to need these keys, and it looks like that door is going to be there for several more years to come. So it'll be a
beautiful door too.
A key to nowhere, a steel clad door. Looks like a Windstream. We should go camping in it.
Can we put the bell on display through the window of the 1212 building or something?
We got to figure that out. I think it's a neat opportunity. It's a neat opportunity to walk up close to it. I'm trying to think of other examples. You know, Libertyville in Philadelphia, you have lines of people walking up. They want to go look at that. Ours wouldn't draw that kind of crowd. But you look at the Millennium Bell over in Newport that's elevated outside. That's a Verdon construct as well. So it'd be nice, you know, if we could create some type of display in south side of Washington Park, right in front of the church for a couple of years while it's there, or some indoor public space downtown Cincinnati that could be, you know, so I don't know. Otherwise, it's going to go sit in a warehouse. I think we're going to miss an opportunity for people to kind of go up and, hey, look at that. Yeah.
Was that bell original, Brian?
Yeah, the bell is, it's really neat because it's Verdon Companies here in Cincinnati, and they are 1842, and First Lutheran is 1842. So we've been here in this building 125 years, but we're 178 years in here in Cincinnati. And so Verdon and First started the same year, and so we had our 175th anniversary celebrations the same year. And so we, Jim Verdon came and spent 2-3 hours here at the church, and he took me over and spent 2-3 hours at the foundry there. And some great conversation. They inspected the bill. They even brought over the ledger from 1895, February, March, that shows the signature of the treasurer at the time for First signed their ledger paying $420 for this 20,000 or 2,000 pound bell. So it's the cost now would probably be north of $100,000, I think. But so we did get some nice appreciation in that item there. But it is original to the 1895 church structure here. Anyone else? If not, we don't have to go for a full hour here, but as a minister, I can keep on talking. You all know that if you know me.
Brian, just a clarifying point about the vote. So
Yes.
we're gonna have the service on Thursday night, but I've already received, and perhaps everybody has received, an envelope and voting slips. Should we wait to complete and send those back until after the Thanksgiving Eve service, or if
Well,
we're
if you-
confident in what we think, send it back in advance, or what do you want on that?
No, so the motion I put up on the slide presentation today is just a sample possibility, because what happens in a Robert Rules of Order meeting, this is what's challenging. That's why last August we changed our constitution. We put a standing resolution in there so that we could have a virtual meeting, not in person. So we provided the phone number and the Zoom link. So everyone has a reasonable possible opportunity to be part of this meeting via phone or Zoom. And then what will happen is someone like Bruce, our leadership chair, would make a motion. The motion is, and then read that motion, the sample one I put up there, for example. Someone would second that, and then there's a time for discussion. And so anyone can raise points about questions and clarifications, and then it's possible that we would amend that motion before it's voted upon. So then we would have an amendment, then have more discussion on the amended motion. If there's no amendments, then we just call the question, and then normally you'd have a vote. You'd have paper ballots or by show of hands or affirmation, aye and nay, or opposed, same sign. But in this case, what will happen is after we close, after we call the vote, what that means is the meeting will adjourn, and then you will then mark your ballot. Because imagine, Joe, if something happened, I can't imagine, but if something just significantly changes between now and then, then you might change your mind about how you want to vote. And so that would change it. So you want to hang on to it until after that meeting. Technically, procedurally, you need to fill out that ballot after the motion has been open for discussion and closed. And then
Okay.
mail that in. We have 3 days, and then hopefully by December 1st, we'll have enough ballots received.
And then we need to have a quorum at that meeting, right?
Right. Right. So we have
Or do we? Do we just need to have a quorum of votes received?
we have 84 voting members, and so all 84 were sent out ballots, and then 10% is a quorum. So we need 8.4. So I don't know who the 4/10 of a person is, but so we need 8 or 9 people is all, and I'm confident we'll get to that.
Okay.
So what that means though is then we'll just wait for a majority of those. Let's see, I got to remember my constitutionality here. A majority of those who were there that voted. That's how it works. So if 8 people show up and 4 people vote yes, 4 people vote no, then it's not going to go that way. You're making me think too hard here. We need a constitutionalist to let me know how that worked when there's a tie. We don't have that. So
Brian, you might want to explain to the reporters why in Lutheran polity this has to be done, why the voting has to be done.
in Lutheran polity, yes, as opposed to other church denominations or politics, the Lutheran congregations, we're a congregationalist structure where the membership are and it's also has a voice in what happens in the church, and so we do have regular meetings. There's also, beyond that Lutheran polity, there's also the it's a legal requirement because we are an incorporated organization. So as an incorporated organization, we have to demonstrate, the decisions have to be made by the owners of, the members of this incorporated entity. And so that would be by the members of this organization who would make those decisions. So we can't enter into contracts, significant contracts beyond a certain dollar amount without membership involvement and approval. Anyone else? If you want to reach out to me separately, my email address is pastorbrianflc@gmail.com. Again, that's pastorbrianflc@gmail.com. And my cell phone number is area code 715-781-1962. Very good. Well, thank you all for coming out, and feel free. This will be posted on our YouTube channel, and that you can access it there in the future if you want to watch or get some highlights or questions about things. And then also if you want to share with others who might be of interest. So again, thank you for coming out, and I look forward to continuing the conversation when I see you again on the next Zoom link or on Zoom worship. So go in peace and share the love of God.
Thanks be to God.
Thanks for leading us, Brian.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.